Warm greetings from the high 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. We're approaching Thursday morning, very, very early in the morning. I want to bring you said information pertaining to Robert Sylvester Kelly. As most of you know, the U.S. has a trial, and it is an interesting trial. And they have brought forth allegations against Robert Kelly for racketeering and said charges of trafficking women across state lines, minors. And I'm going to bring you said information recapping from last week and then go into testimony that's been given this week in the said trial in New York. The New York Times is the first source. R. Kelly said he liked young girls, his third accuser testifies, and this is from last week. The third accuser to testify at the singer's trial said Mr. Kelly described himself as a genius who should be allowed to do what he wanted. Stephanie was 17 and out to dinner with R. Kelly and two rappers, she said, when Mr. Kelly said something that surprised her. He liked young girls and he did not understand why people made such a big deal about it. I'm just going to skim through this. He ended up talking about Jerry Lee Lewis and that he was a genius. I'm a genius. We should be allowed to do what we want. Look at what we give to the world. The woman who testified only as Stephanie is the third accuser to take the stand at Mr. Kelly's trial in Brooklyn. All three women were underage when they testified. Mr. Kelly began having sex with them, but while the two previous accusers to testify had spoken publicly about their encounters with Mr. Kelly before, Stephanie had not, she said on Thursday. Mr. Kelly, 54, is charged with racketeering with 8 violations of the Mann Act, a federal anti-sex trafficking law. He has pleaded not guilty and has consistently denied the accusations against him. Stephanie, now 39, is one of the 6 women whose encounters with Mr. Kelly make up the heart of the prosecution's case as they seek to convince jurors that the singer used his fame and a network of employees and associates to build a system of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. During her testimony on last Thursday afternoon, Stephanie said that the singer, whose real name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, preyed upon her beginning in the summer of 1999 when she was 17 and approached him to ask if her friend could audition for him. He said, yeah, that he thought he could arrange that, but also he liked to get to know me, she said, and also that he likes to cuddle and I would be okay with that. Hoping to help her friend, she said she agreed, and before long, Mr. Kelly was having sex with her. That was definitely the hardest time of my life, she told the jury. I had very low self-esteem. I already had been through sexual trauma within my family, but by my first boss, by men on the street, I was very vulnerable. With Mr. Kelly, she said she reached a new low. I've never been treated like that before or since, she said. He humiliated me, excuse me. He degraded me, scared me. I'll never forget the way he treated me. Stephanie was 17 for most of the time that she spent with Mr. Kelly, she said, noting that she was clear with him about her age, but that he did not care. Stephanie recalled that Mr. Kelly had 2 sides. He was very nice and charming, jovial, she said, or he was very controlling, intimidating. He would raise his voice at me and could put the fear of God in me quickly. She said that he was particularly controlling during sex. It was humiliating, said Stephanie, who was accompanied to court on Thursday by Gloria Allred. He would be very specific about how he would want me to be. He would put me in positions he wanted me to be in. She said noting that sometimes he would direct her to get completely naked, assign her a position, and then leave the room sometimes for hours. Okay. Accusations pertaining to Mr. Kelly date back to the 90s, as most of you have heard, but the racketeering charge, which claims that Mr. Kelly was the head of a criminal scheme that preyed on women and underage girls for sex, allows the government to introduce evidence from any time that was part of the conspiracy that prosecutors are seeking to prove. Okay, I'm going to bring you more information, skimming over this. Okay, at one time he did pressure the young lady to have an abortion, and said that he had once beaten her with a Nike sneaker on multiple occasions. She said he directed her to have sex with a man she didn't know. And this is another testimony from another woman who used a pseudonym. And she spent almost 5 years with Mr. Kelly. And their sexual encounters began at 17, the one that was beaten with the shoe. So there were several women who have testified. And she's now 23. And is the most vocal of all the women who have testified. She stayed with Mr. Kelly through his arrest and remained with the singer even after his incarceration. But she testified this week that Mr. Kelly had scripted her to answer questions during a high-profile television interview in 2019. And I think we already know that was the 2 young ladies who were in the Gayle King morning video, morning show, CBS morning show video. And then last week, Geronda Pace became the first of his accusers to ever testify against him in court, telling the jury that her sexual encounters with the singer started when she was 17. And it says Stephanie's testimony on Thursday, which was a week ago, echoed the earlier accusers' accounts. She said that Mr. Kelly sometimes recorded their sex acts, recalling him using both a VHS tape recorder and another device while they were having sex. And we've also heard that in testimony that he used an iPad. So what's amazing about that is that Mr. Kelly has been alleged to not be able to read and write, but yet he knew how to work an iPad. And many people might say, well, it doesn't take much to learn how to work an iPad. It's not that hard to press record. But I'm just saying, if we're to believe that this man has lived so many years living in the world, not being able to read, write, comprehend, so one would say, well, how was he able to write songs? And then we also find out he was able to play the keyboard and the piano. It's just very interesting information pertaining to Mr. Kelly. Let's see. Now, as far as this Stephanie's testimony, who's giving information that he taped her with a VHS device, a VHS tape recorder, and another device that says the breaking point came a little later, she said, after Mr. Kelly flew her and a friend, Catherine, an expiring singer, to Orlando and left them there for several days. I started to think he'd forgotten I was there, she said, noting that she never left the house. But shortly before she was scheduled to leave, Mr. Kelly returned for her and again directed her to have oral sex while he recorded. I felt used and humiliated and degraded, she said, and I just didn't want to see him anymore. A short time later, she said, she broke off the contact with him for good. If you need information for this sad commentary, the New York Times is the source. Thank you very much. I'm going to read you the latest that's pertaining to the trial. This is some very crazy information. Chicago Sun-Times is the next source. Feds investigated whether Bureau of Prisons employee leaked R. Kelly info to blogger. And this is the latest, hottest gossip running right now on social media pertaining to a YouTuber. CST is the source. Federal authorities looked into whether a now-retired Bureau of Prisons employee leaked information about R&B singer R. Kelly to an entertainment blogger while Kelly was locked up in Chicago's downtown federal jail, records show. Prosecutors sought a judge's permission in February 2020 to search the employee's computer following a report to the BOP's Office of Internal Affairs that blogger Tasha K had shared information that was available to BOP employees. That's according to an affidavit written by a special agent with the Justice Department, offices of the Inspector General. The affidavit was unsealed in federal court in Chicago August 18 as Kelly's racketeering trial got underway in earnest in Brooklyn. Though it identifies Kelly only as inmate A, it refers to him as a nationally recognized celebrity whose criminal case has received media attention. The BOP employee is identified only as Officer A. Joseph Fitzpatrick, a spokesperson for U.S. Attorney John Losh, confirmed Kelly is inmate A. He declined to characterize the status of the investigation, but said no charges had been filed. The records were first reported by the Chicago Tribune. Kelly was arrested in July 2019 in Chicago and held in Chicago's Metropolitan Correctional Center until last June. Meanwhile, the BOP employee in question had been assigned to the Thompson Correctional Center from May 2019 until December 2019 when she retired, according to the affidavit. MCC staff realized in November 2019 that Tasha K had revealed information about Kelly available in a BOP system that contains records of inmate calls, visitation logs, emails, and funds, the document said. A review of assets logs from July 15, 2019 through January 8, 2020 showed that 60 BOP employees had accessed those records, including the BOP employee in question. That person had accessed Kelly's records 153 times between July 15, 2019 and December 12, 2019, even though the officer was not assigned to the MCC and had no official reason to access them. The agent made note of January 12, 2020 Instagram post from Tasha K that depicted Kelly's visitation list and revealed a date of December 5, 2019 at 8:07 a.m. He wrote that access logs showed the suspected employee accessed Kelly's records at that same time. Other BOP employees accessed them at other times of the day, the agent wrote. The suspected employee also sent an email from her official BOP email address to a Gmail address on November 13, 2019 and attached a 12-page document containing Kelly's records. according to the affidavit. It included visitor and money logs and emails, it said. Tasha K divulged some of the emails in that attachment in a December 22, 2019 YouTube video, the agent wrote. Kelly, 54, faces federal racketeering charges in Brooklyn alleging he led an enterprise designed to help him recruit women, girls for illegal sex and to create child pornography. He also faces federal child pornography and obstruction of justice charges in Chicago. That is the said information coming out of Chicago by the ChicagoSunTimes.com if you need a source. So Tasha K's name has now been introduced into this buffoonery, and that she has gotten information from an employee that worked at the jailing system, and they gave her said information pertaining to R. Kelly. And the information is, let me make sure I get all of it here. Hold on one second. The affidavit is accusing her of having access to inmate calls, visitation logs, emails, and funds, the document said. So what we have to ask ourselves is not what is going to happen to the said person who worked for the jailing system. Will she be prosecuted now? Or will she take a plea? Or will she take the fifth clause and testify to get immunity? What's going to happen? And will Tasha K end up being served documents to testify, subpoena in court? And she'll take an immunity clause to repeat the said information that was given to her via by phone, email, video chat, whichsoever. This is a fine mess. And as most of you know, Tasha K has had a lot of issues pertaining to the parents of Miss Jocelyn. I think at one time there was allegations of them wanting to sue her or had attempted to sue her. So as you see, the belly of the beast is deep. And it's really sad that now her name has to come back out in more drama pertaining to R. Kelly. But that's to be expected. When you're talking about somebody and then people are reaching out to you, they want to give you the 411, the 211 pertaining to what's going on with the person. And so now her name has been put on blast pertaining to this ratchet case that's taking place in New York. I do not know what the law officials are going to do pertaining to handling the official who went in and got the documents out and gave them to her. What's going to happen to her? Because it says here in this article she's retired. So will she be brought up on charges? What's going to happen with Miss Tasha K? Is she going to be brought up? Because I heard one network saying that possibly she might be brought up on charges. But the thing is, what will she be charged with? Someone gave them to her. She didn't go in and break in as this official did. Because 9 times out of 10, someone reached out to her, which is this said person, and let her know, hey, I can give you the goods. She waited, received them, and that's the said information, and then repeated it. So one could say, is that the crime? That she repeated it on an open blog? You're entitled to your opinion pertaining to the situation. But the case itself is ratchet. And you're entitled to believe what you want to pertaining to Robert Kelly, the allegations against him. If you think he is a pedophile, if you believe he's a rapist, an abuser, narcissist, sadist, sociopath, those are the things I consider him to be. Music, great, but that has nothing to do with the crimes he's been accused of. Robert is nasty. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. He doesn't have any remorse. And it was said in court last week that the only time that Robert Kelly has shown emotion since sitting in that trial for his life was when Faith testified. So one would have to be curious to why is that. Is it that he was offended that that person testified, Miss Faith? Upset at the allegations of not being able to perform properly? Or all of the above? Embarrassed that she is one of the people coming forward, made it to court and testified, made accusations of him passing her the herpes virus, and then the ultimate blow that Robert Kelly couldn't perform, which he's known for being very sexually active. So maybe that was a blow to his ego. Who's to say? But this is a sad, sick tale of a man who had it all. People would love to have been in his shoes, to be a performer, to have the chance to perform around the world, entertain, be in the circles of great musicians, actors, entertainers, well-known people, well-to-do people. But he forfeited all that by chasing them behind children. boys and girls. And that was also revealed in last week's testimony. He has participated in sexual relations with boy children. It goes on and on pertaining to Robert Kelly. With Robert, he's damn near not left a stone unturned, as I stated last week, except for sleeping with a corpse and bestiality, which is sleeping with animals. I'm saying that. How far is he willing to go? At some point, enough should be enough. Obviously, one woman is not enough. And the sick thing about the story, besides bedding children, is the fact that he had them all in the same home. And one would have to ask themselves that even if you were dating one guy, at what point would you get tired of him mistreating you physically, mentally, verbally, sexually? But to then be in the same household, hotels, with various women, and you know that he's sleeping with those women, you also know and see and hear how he's treating them alongside you, why in the world would you stay in a relationship with a man who is visually partaking in sexual behavior with other women in front of you, expecting you to go along, making you go along, or asking you to? Because one could say they could up and leave if they could find a way to get out. But you're participating with him knowing he's with the other women. That's what I find the most baffling. Besides the underage girls, it's the fact that the women stayed knowing that other women stayed in the household, the hotels. That's baffling to me. Why would you settle to be in the company of other women, then also join in with the sexual escapades? Because you were never number one. You could never be number one. You would eventually be replaced at some point. Whether you came in at 17, at some point you would be replaced, and there would be a number 3. If it was 2 left, he would eventually find a number 3 and 4. Do you see where I'm going? Where would it end? How would it end? But it has ended. And as far as I know, I haven't heard that anyone is supporting him, any of the women left. Now, I don't know if Jocelyn is still in his corner. I've heard a little bit of rumors, but I do not know if it's true or not. We will see. We will also see if she will be one to testify against Robert Kelly for the state, or would be a defense witness for Robert Kelly. We will see how that turns out, because I did hear that she was in New York, I believe at the federal building. So we will see how all this turns out, and if Jocelyn will finally turn on Robert Kelly, because I did hear and see pictures that her family was attending court. And as I said, people have shown out in the overflow rooms, which is baffling to me as well, how you could demonstrate such ignorance for a man you do not know, never met, and has horrible allegations against him with men, women, and boys and girls. As I state, he doesn't have a preference. Why would you act a fool in a federal court building on behalf of Robert Kelly? Does Robert have any remorse at this point? Is he starting to feel the brunt of all this madness that he caused? Is he finally breaking down and realizing, damn, I made a mistake. I had too many irons in the fire. I was committing crimes that I should not have been committing. I should have gotten help. I should have reached out to somebody. I should have changed my ways. What is Robert Kelly thinking now? How does he feel right now? How does his children feel about him? How does Miss Drea feel about the situation? Are the women's coping, doing better? Now that some have testified and gotten that part over with, what is to become of the other cases in Chicago and Minnesota? Will he also have to go to trial in those said places, no matter what the outcome is in this trial? Robert Kelly is in the hot seat indeed, but he put himself there, and I don't feel any sorrow for him. He made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. This is the sad information coming out of New York. If you want to donate to the channel, $Beganji 129 Cash App. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you would like to help a friend out that is in Louisiana at the moment, trying to get care for himself and his sister and his pets. Mr. Carlos P. is a victim of Hurricane Ida, and he and his sister are in dire need down there, trying to get themselves situated with FEMA and get their house back in order, or decide if they're going to stay or move somewhere else. And if you'd like to donate to Carlos's Cash App, it is $Los55 Perry. And I thank you so very much. If you can donate, a few members of my chat have donated to Carlos. I want to thank you, Sean. I want to thank you, Fred and Miss Nancy, for your donations to Carlos, because as I state, he has 3 dogs or so in Louisiana who he has to tend to, and also 2 in a shelter in Tennessee. And I'm praying for he and his sister that they get to where they need, to where they can get themselves in a said location, a permanent location. Prayers for everyone in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, New York, and New Jersey. These are the said states that were affected by Hurricane Ida. Prayers for everyone, and prayers for those who perished in the storm. God bless all of you. Stay safe. I will bring you more commentary tomorrow. Later today, which is Thursday, pertaining to R. Kelly and the testimony. Friday, there may not be court because I believe the judge likes to have her day off on Friday. So I will bring you information later today pertaining to Robert Kelly, and then I will resume information next Monday pertaining to this federal trial. Thank you all so much for joining me. New subscribers, please tune in, like, share, subscribe. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Be safe.